The Closing Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close, starts right now.
And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. It starts right now. Tim Stenovec in the radio booth. Isabel Lee in today for Carol Massar. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube on what, surprisingly, Tim Stenovec, could be a record-setting day.
It could be. I think surprising given what we heard about the reports this morning about Fed Chair Jay Powell. I think that, any other day, the focus would be like we'd be talking about big bank earnings, maybe United earnings after the bell. But the focus for us for much of the day has been, will he or won't he, when it comes to the president and Jay Powell.
But it's interesting. How much would you put credence on the comment, on the pressures of the comment today? Because we really have a Fed chair who's really just trying to keep his job, but a president who's really trying to test the markets and see the market reaction.
Yeah, and he did test the markets, and then, of course, he denied the report, which allowed equity investors to kind of look past everything and push indexes to the highs of the session right now. So the focus comes back to companies and what they tell us about what they're seeing and how they're positioning themselves amid all this uncertainty.
And so far, the earnings, I know we're very, very early in the earnings season, but so far, it has been relatively encouraging. No one is really basically saying, look, things are going to fall off a cliff. We just had an interview with the CEO of Prologis, the biggest warehouse REIT in the United States, and he did suggest there are some pressures when it comes to tariffs, immigration, and other things, but overall, business is still good, and he still sees consumers still spending. As we get the closing bells here in New York, it is green across the screen here on this Wednesday afternoon. And despite all of the intraday ructions that we saw earlier in the session that took stocks from green into the red, we are firmly back in the green almost across the board. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.5 percentage point on the day. The S&P up 0.3% on the day. The NASDAQ Composite up 0.3% on the day. And the NASDAQ 100 closing out at a record high, up about 0.1% on the day. The Russell 2000, that's going to be your main outperformer on the index basis, up 1% on the day. Now, we are, of course, getting some earnings as well, including from United. That's just crossing the wire right now. Let's get right to it as we see those shares bounce around in the after-hours trade, with the company saying second quarter adjusted EPS coming in at $3.87 a share. That's a beat of about 3 cents. As far as revenue, the company basically does say that the revenue did come in above estimates, with operating revenue at $15.2 billion and passenger revenue at $13.84, though we should point out passenger revenue is a slight miss. The street was looking for 13.92. The guidance for the third quarter, the current quarter that we're in right now, adjusted EPS 225 to 275. That's the range the company is giving. The high end of that range, 275, is above the average of street estimates for $2.65 a share.
And we're seeing shares of United kind of bounce around. They were down about 1%, now slightly higher as well. Well, when you look at that guidance, what strikes me is that the full year adjusted EPS of $9 to $11, the midpoint of that is higher than the consensus estimate. But when you look at what they have for this quarter, the third quarter, that is a little bit lighter than what analysts had been anticipating. So perhaps things getting pushed out to the fourth quarter rather than seeing any kind of blue skies immediately.
Some really interesting commentary in the press release. The company saying that beginning in early July, United has seen a sequential 6-point acceleration in demand and a double-digit acceleration in business demand versus the second quarter. The airline attributes this to less geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainty and has updated its full-year adjusted diluted EPS guidance to $9 to $11, underscoring the resilience of United's brand-loyal, revenue-diverse business model. The company also said that in June, United at Newark, and this was a big question given the challenges that Newark had, they said they led all other major airlines in on-time performance and lowest seat cancellation rate at all New York City area airports.
I'm curious to know, are airline valuations attractive at current price multiples, or are some carriers better positioned, like Alaska or legacy carriers like United? And how are airlines managing non-fuel costs, like labor, maintenance, loyalty programs, which we all love? And lastly, is technology, especially AI, really helping?
Yeah, these are all good questions, and these are all things that strategically investors will want answers to. But in the immediate here and now, the focus is going to be on the fact that this full year adjusted EPS is a lowered range than what it had previously seen, $9 to $11, whereas previously it expected $11.50 to $13.50. So again, keeping an eye on those shares. As for the trade today on Wednesday, it was a really interesting day because the S&P 500 was bouncing around, but in the last 2 or 3 hours, we saw a steady rise higher. And by the end of the day, look at the IMAP. You only have 3 sectors in the red. Energy stocks down about 0.8%, and communication services and consumer discretionary, basically little changed. Healthcare, REITs, and financials were your top gainers on the day.
All right, I had quite a few gainers to choose from. I want to start with Johnson & Johnson, one of the best performing stocks in the S&P 500. The company beat sales expectations and raised its full-year outlook. It showed confidence even as the pharmaceutical industry faces threats of tariffs and a crackdown on drug pricing. Shares higher today by about 6.2%. The company increased the midpoint of its 2025 revenue projection. It raised the midpoint of its full-year adjusted earnings outlook. Sales in the quarter reached $23.7 billion. That was ahead of the average estimate from analysts. Also, watching what happened with asset management stocks today. In general, they moved higher, including Apollo Global Management. The Trump administration finalized an executive order that would pave the way for 401k retirement savings plans to invest in private equity. This, according to people familiar with the matter. Shares of Apollo, ticker APO, up 4.8% today. And finally, quantum computing stock, Rigetti Computing. It's typically among the most actively traded stocks, but even for a stock that's actively traded regularly, this was a day of outperformance. Shares surged today more than 30%. This after the company said in a press release that it succeeded in demonstrating the largest multi-chip quantum computer in the industry. This milestone is a 2x reduction in the median 2-qubit gate error rate from previous best results in its 84-qubit single-chip Anka 3 system. I don't know exactly what that means, but investors were pretty excited about it.
Let's not have
I was going to have you translate it for me, Romaine. I know you're like big into these quantum stocks.
Yeah, I am actually.
I know.
Okay, so now it's time for decliners. We have Ford down by 2.5%. The car maker says it is recalling almost 700,000 vehicles to address a long-running issue over cracking in an auto part that can leak fuel into the engine and cause fire. So the action applies to a certain Bronco Sport and Escape models from 2020 to 2024. Next, we have Bank of America. Ticker is BAC. Shares are kind of flat, but down by 0.2%. So the stock edged between gains and losses, but ended in the red. We have the bank reporting trading revenue that beat analyst estimates, but we have Evercore saying that the result was largely in line and not overly exciting, with trading revenue better than expected and tax rate lower than expected. And last, we have Amazon. So lots of headline for this stock. It's down by 1.5%. Amazon carbon emissions rose for the first time in 3 years in 2024. We have environmental watchdogs really watching this key metric. CrowdStrike also expanded its collaboration with AWS. And lastly, the third headline for Amazon, Cantor Fitzgerald raising their target on Amazon to $260 from $240.
All right, let's check in on yields because it was a really interesting day. We talk about the idea that a lot of the knee-jerk reaction to some of those headlines on Powell's did get reversed. Not necessarily so when it comes to the Treasury market. You did see yields go down across the board, but what is interesting, you actually saw the yield curve steepen for a fourth straight session, and it's a significant steepening as well because you talk about this idea here that with a lot of this now weighted back towards the front end of the curve, what exactly are investors pricing in? They may not be fearful of Powell being removed prior to his May 2026 term ending, but they are concerned about how the political pressure might influence the decisions going forward and the decisions after and what that might mean for inflation.
Okay, you're talking about the bond market and Jay Powell. I'm talking video games here and GameStop. Did you guys see what GameStop ended up doing, given there were some problems with the new Nintendo Switch 2?
Yeah, I saw this. So, so some knucklehead decided that he was just going to, staple the receipts like directly onto the box?
Yeah, and what it ended up doing was puncturing the screen. Yes. Right. And because this is 2025 and we live in a world of social media.
Did he not know that there was an expensive device inside that box?
Well, not all is lost here.
Okay.
What ended up happening was they ended up auctioning this off, GameStop did.
Wonderful.
$250,000
cool.
on eBay compared to a new one, which would cost just $500. Wow. And yes, creating another viral moment for a company.
Wait, why is a punctured one worth so much?
Maybe because GameStop got involved. Ryan Cohen got involved.
Yeah, but it's not like there's anything beyond that, just because it was in a viral moment.
He said it turned into a collectible, and now it's dubbed
collectible.
Staplegate.
He also said, he tweeted it out. He said, if this reaches 6 figures, I will include my underwear.
Wonderful.
Wow.
And it did reach 6 figures.
Wow.
Wonderful.
They know how to make a moment.
The wonder. Do I want to? Never mind.
You can see the punctures there in the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you know, it was actually hard to see. It didn't seem like that big of a deal.
You know, I had
I would have
disappointed
just
that
returned
picture
it.
too. When I saw the story, I was like, what? But,
yeah, I really had to struggle
whatever.
hard to see where the staple hit. It's not like it cracked the screen or anything.
You know what? Just put that right next to your, your Bored Ape picture and your the banana taped to the wall and whatever other nonsense that we're spending our money on these days.
That is the world we live in.
You weren't the one who bid on this, Isabel, were you?
We got to go, guys. That's going to do it for our cross-platform coverage.
Speak for Isabel.
Of the market close.
Tim,
and of United earnings, which we are continuing with on Bloomberg Radio in just a minute. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place.